Don't mess this up. This is the moment. This is the moment. Caitlin Clark is the one. We've never seen anything like this in women's team sports, and I could make the case never in the history of women's sports. Angel needs Caitlin to sell out Angel's Arena, right? Angel, when they moved to the big United Center in Chicago, the prices drop when Caitlin is not there, or the right, and the tickets are, the secondary market goes crazy. But Angel's still in the game, but Caitlin's not. Angel cannot sell out. Well, she had 10,000, which probably wasn't 10,000 in Washington. 24 hours later, apples to apples, Caitlin Clark had over 20,000. So it's not Angel. Angel's a great rebounder, a great player. It is Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark. Those two words can make people feel joy, anger, hatred, jealousy, all kinds of emotions. One woman who is changing women's sports, in particular the game of women's basketball. Christine Brennan has written a book on her game, Caitlin Clark and the Revolution in Women's Sports. And Christine Brennan is one of the foremost sports writers over the last 4 decades. Bestseller. She writes for USA Today. You've probably seen her on CNN, many, many places, NPR, PBS. She does a ton of work. And this book is so journalistically thought out and presented. This was not done necessarily as an authorized biography of Caitlin Clark. You're going to hear this, but the anecdotes, the information, the data, the proof, it's all great stuff. Christine Brennan is our guest. Please click that subscribe button wherever you're listening or watching. We'd love to have you on board for every single one of our episodes. Just click subscribe. It's free. It winds up in your mailbox. It's awesome. Please do that for us, and we'll see you on every episode. Stay tuned. Christine Brennan on her book, on her game, Caitlin Clark and the Revolution in Women's Sports. Christine, it's great to see you again, and congratulations on this book. It's tremendous, and it doesn't amaze me because you've been doing this for so long and you're so accomplished, and your books are almost a guaranteed New York Times bestseller list. But it had to be thrilling for you to be the one to sort of write the definitive book on Caitlin Clark at this point. How did it come about?
Well, thanks, Michelle. It's great to be with you and all of our time together at the Olympics and the NFL games. So good to see you again. Thanks for having me. And
you bet.
And yeah, it was serendipitous and it was whimsical. And you can't necessarily say those words about your career when you've been doing this for 40 years, as I have, right? That things don't necessarily happen like this anymore, which made it even all the better. And I'll explain. So literally, as we're talking, 13 months ago, there was no book. Early July and even into mid-July of 2024, I'd been thinking a little bit about, obviously I've been covering Caitlin Clark, writing some columns, got to meet her for 5 minutes because the Olympic swimming trials, which of course you and I used to run into each other all the time at,
yes.
They were in Indianapolis by chance. And so I'm in Indy. So then I went over and covered a couple Fever games and wrote columns on her. My editor said, leave swimming, go cover Caitlin Clark just because of the magnitude of the interest in her, right? And this was in her rookie year last year. And so just by chance, I'm in Indy, would not have been there otherwise except for the swimming. And so I go over, we get a chance to talk and meet for 5 minutes off the record, just chit chat, lovely, just what you'd hope, strong handshake, Lucy in the eye, thanks you for your coverage. We sit down and chat about Northwestern Iowa games, things like that, and had a great time. Even then, no book idea, didn't mention it, didn't even think about it. And I come home here to DC. I'm gearing up for the Paris Olympics. Of course, you've covered so many, and that's all time, full time, right? You're packing, you're thinking. Yeah. Anyway, I had a conversation with an editor at Scribner. I had not written a book in 19 years.
Wow.
And I was really happy not writing books. Yeah. And by that, I mean, they change your life. I mean, I had a boyfriend, a previous book about 30 years ago, who called it self-imposed house arrest. And that is true. And that's not my personality right now. I'm that's book writing. Book tour is more like running for office. And my personality is definitely more book tour than book writing. So anyway, I wasn't even thinking about it. I had this conversation. And the next day I got a phone call, no book proposal, no plan, no nothing, sight unseen. they offer me a wonderful, offer to a contract to write the book, and a Caitlin Clark book, unauthorized, which I know can sound ominous. It's not. It's what you want. I'm a journalist. It's a journalistic, no holds barred look at Caitlin Clark, at the WNBA, at the failings of the WNBA, to not prepare for this moment, to not help the players understand the magnitude of this moment, all the things that I'm sure we'll talk about, all of that. And of course, Caitlin Clark, the magic of Caitlin, the logo threes jumping off the page, and just what an incredible role model and person she is. All that's on her game. It was not with her. I did not offer that, and her people wouldn't have wanted that. She'll write her book someday. It'll sell as many copies as whatever the best-selling To Kill a Mockingbird, or I don't know, whatever. But that's not this book. This book is a journalistic look, because I want to cover her again. I don't want to be in business with her, right? So anyway, that's the difference, and that's what we did. But even I signed the contract in August after the Olympics, officially. And so the idea that within a year and less than a week, that book, which wasn't even a book, started out and debuted at number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list. Again, as I said, this kind of whimsical, magical moment, even for me in my career, made it all the more fun and just a delight to have gone through it all. And of course, here we are, and still talking about it, still touring, and people are just, hundreds and hundreds of people at book signings in Iowa and Indiana, but also in DC and Maryland and Ohio and Chicago. It's really, really taken off in a wonderful way.
Well, and I congratulate you on that. And it's, for anyone that wants to deny that this young woman is changing the face of women's basketball, and maybe just the face of women's sports, stop denying it and accept it. And you mentioned that here in a second ago, the WNBA's failure to prepare for the moment. Mm-hmm. Is it fair to say that they could have anticipated better just what an impact she was going to have?
Yes, it is fair to say that. I say that. As you know, in the book, I talk about that. And even now, here we are, we can make this current right now as we're chatting. We are well into the second year of the Caitlin Clark era in the WNBA. Now, she's been injured a lot, and that's also so rare and obviously so disheartening for her. And hopefully she'll be back soon. And the logo threes and the TV ratings and everything will rise because of that again. So the fact that it's still happening now, we're still seeing evidence of just cheap shot hits. That's, again, a month or so ago. But Marina Mabry, that one comes to mind. Like, what are you doing? This is insane. Yeah. You guard her, you cover her. She can give it out as good as she can take it. But these cheap shots on the person who is the entire future, the economic rocket ship for the league, that's just insanity. And it's happening again. And going back, though, to your question, Michele, without a doubt, I have an anecdote in the book that is as telling as any, and I'm so pleased I have it in there. I decided to use it. I do not name the person, but everyone can trust my reporting, like your reporting. When you'd be on that sideline and you'd be giving facts, those were facts. They were, battle tested by you. Same with me. Yes. Nothing in this book is not double sourced, triple sourced, or something I witnessed or heard myself or dealt with myself. It's the same kind of journalism I have done for all these years, right?
Yes.
And then I don't speculate, right? So I speculate maybe on the book tour. I give my opinion and chat about other topics like that, but I don't. In the book, you're going to get this rock solid view of this moment. It's an incredible moment in women's sports and in our country. And Caitlin Clark isn't only one of the greatest and one of the most popular athletes in our country. She's one of the most popular people in our country. And thank goodness for her and the personality and the class and the dignity and the grace that she shows us. And so she announced, she's a senior at Iowa. She did have another fifth year for COVID if she wanted it. Mm-hmm. And she announced right at the end of February last year, 2024, that she was going to go pro, be eligible for the draft, which means she's going to the Indiana Fever. They had the number 1 pick. And so the next day I called someone I've known at the WNBA for a while. And it's just a friendly chat. It's what we do, not necessarily thinking I'm writing a story or column, just talk for a few minutes. And, it's a people business. So just, be in touch with folks. And this person, we're chatting and I just said, hey, do you realize, how big this is? And this person said back to me, yeah, it's the biggest thing to happen to the WNBA since Maya Moore. And I say in the book, that was a surprising answer.
Yeah.
But on the phone, I was like, what? What are you talking about? Not because Maya Moore was not great. Of course she was great. 4 WNBA titles, 2 at UConn, an incredible player, also a wonderful person, and the role model and best, number one favorite player of young Caitlin Clark, growing up 4 hours away in Iowa. So all of that's Maya Moore. But she never transcended the sport. Right. Minnesota Lynx games, she wasn't selling out those games. She wasn't getting millions and millions of viewers on TV. I wish she had been. It would have been lovely. Those of us who've covered women's sports and covered the WNBA, as I have off and on since the 90s, I wish that all these women had gotten more attention. I covered it. I cared. I wish that we had done a better job. We didn't. People didn't care. You can't force entertainment on people. A lot of men especially didn't like it, didn't care about it. Fine. Those are facts. Funny thing about facts, right, Michelle? Facts are facts. Data is data. Yeah. And some of these conversations I've been in, it's like, look at the attendance, folks. Look at the ratings.
Yeah, you can't, and I covered the WNBA as a play-by-play announcer for its first 3 seasons. I worked with Reggie Miller, and some others, and Megan Pattison, who was a former player and coach at UConn, and we covered the games. And it was true. We saw some sensational play. We saw some great role models, some phenomenal players, some great storytelling. But you can't, like you said, you cannot just force people to show up. They're going to show up. But I want to run a story by you really quick that I saw when I covered a UConn doubleheader. The women played first, then the men. This was Rebecca Lobo era. And they decided to turn it into a doubleheader. And so we got there about halftime of the women's game. We were covering the men's game. And this is when all the people started streaming in for the men's game. They started filling up the stands. So they caught the second half of this women's game. And the crowd was going crazy by the end of this thing with Lobo and company. And I thought to myself, this was really smart. You expose this kind of, you piggybacked on the popularity of the men's team at the time, and you piggyback and you turn this into something that people could really see for the first time maybe and appreciate. And one of my complaints about the WNBA is that they want to be their own league and sort of counter program on the off season of the NBA. And I just wonder if it wouldn't be more productive to say, you know what, there's a basketball season. Let's participate in that basketball season. What do you think of that? After nearly 30 years on the sidelines, doing the NFL, the Olympics, NBA, you name it, I've learned that real expertise comes from consistency, not guesswork. And that's why I'm excited to team up with Sports Corner Daily. Their free daily picks keep cashing with analysis so clear, even a casual fan can cash in. And with the NFL and college football and all the big matchups coming up right around the corner, this is the best time to get in on the action. My listeners get 2 expert picks delivered free every single day. Every single day, free. Just text the word BETS, B-E-T-S, to 844-759-0281 or visit sportsdailypick.com to sign up in seconds. No cost, no risk, just smart winning insight. Again, text the word BETS, B-E-T-S, to 844-759-0281 or go to sportsdailypick.com. Sign up. Don't wait. Kick off the season on the winning side. And one of my complaints about the WNBA is that they want to be their own league and sort of counter program on the off season of the NBA. And I just wonder if it wouldn't be more productive to say, you know what, there's a basketball season. Let's participate in that basketball season. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's a great point. And we saw it even with soccer, but we've seen it with even high school girls and boys basketball, right? Where you have the games and they now flip it often because of Title IX. You don't always just give the boys the best time. But yeah, absolutely. The idea that the boys because in our sport, in our country, traditionally for generations, men had opportunities, boys and men, that women did not have. So these are, again, the realities of our world. And then you piggyback, but then you bring them in, and now they're hooked, right?
Yeah.
And that's, of course, what ended up happening with the UConn women's program and the attendance and everything about what was going on with UConn. So you were seeing that in a very interesting way, at the beginning, before UConn women were really UConn women, as you said, Lobo, bringing that program up to a national level that they're still at. So yeah, I mean, the negative is that for the idea. The positive is everything that you've mentioned, right? And then you have a WNBA game before the NBA game, or vice versa. Right. And you've got people coming in the arena. Now, the negative would be that a lot of these owners, some are still very NBA, WNBA linked, like the Fever. That's Pacers, Sports and Entertainment. They own both. Others now have separated a bit. And so, but those owners that do own both WNBA and NBA team or have an affiliation, they really want this summertime, travel, right? They want the money, they want the concessions, they want people.
And that makes sense. That makes business sense. And those are facts too, right? I mean, you can't deny what works for these organizations. That's a great point.
Yeah. I do think, I do think you've hit on something about kind of a corollary. One of the things that is what I think the greatest allure for the WNBA are these college players who have great followings, right? It's not only the TV ratings are so much higher in college than they are in the pros. I mean, obviously Caitlin and Iowa, but it was Caitlin. They got the 18.9 million viewers for the final game of Caitlin's career. That was the Iowa loss to South Carolina.
Insane.
Right.
It's an insane number.
And then the next day, the men had 4 million less. Now, you and I, we're never going to be able to say that again. I hope. I would be great if it would. Juju Watkins is not that draw. She can't sell out Southern Cal's arena. Let's hope she gets healthy, and she's great and she's magical, but she's not Caitlin. It doesn't have that same allure. And that's the other thing. It's Caitlin. It's not Paige Beckers. Paige Beckers can't sell out a 7,000 seat arena in Dallas. I'm not being critical. People can come at me, fine. Paige Beckers is a great player. She's not an entertainer. Caitlin is an entertainer, very much like Tiger Woods, brings people in who otherwise wouldn't watch and then won't watch if she's not playing. And so, but you've got a fan base because of alums from various universities who will always then follow the players from their school, male, female, NFL, college, basketball, even, my goodness, lacrosse, women's lacrosse. I didn't know we had it at Northwestern. Wilbon, my buddy, my first day freshman year, Mike Wilbon and I, Mike calls me and says, hey, we're about to win the 2005 NCAA championship. I didn't even know we had a team or really what I knew lacrosse, but I certainly hadn't watched it, but because it's my school. So WNBA, use that. They are going to now have more expansion teams, as you know. That's good. They need more roster spots. They probably should add a couple even for teams, especially with all the injuries. Bring in these don't cut the college players. They often have to cut first and second round picks because they can't add them to the team. Bring them in. Now you've got this incredible following and play them, obviously. And now their alma mater, all the fans that watched, that, again, a really great rating even without Caitlin, 7 or 8 million, I think, that just watched this women's Final Four this year, which was not a particularly good game. It was a blowout by UConn. Well, right. You could have some of these people come to the WNBA where, again, 1 or 2 million is a really good, viewership. So far less than college, and help to bring it up that way. That's certainly one thing that they need to do, and they're going to do with these new expansion teams. Yeah,
that makes a whole ton of sense. It's so interesting. I want to focus on Caitlin. And the first thing I want to ask you about is something you mentioned in the book about, would she be who she is if she had gone somewhere else? She originally said she was going to go to Notre Dame, but Muffet McGraw, the legendary coach there, was kind of like, she hasn't really committed yet. I don't know. And then she decommitted, went to Iowa. Why was that so pivotal?
I love kind of the what ifs of sports. We've all covered so much, right? And we can, what if, this happens or this, right? I mean, you and I covered Michael Phelps, the length of his career. What if, he chooses a different stroke, or whatever. Yeah. I mean, doesn't go to Bob Bowman. There's a million ways, right, on these kinds of things. And so when I started to report the book, and I was reporting it quickly, and then was around Caitlin and the Fever traveling. So I asked Caitlin 40 to 50 questions. She totally participated in my questions for the book, answered anything and everything. So, as you're, kind of, working on all of this issue popped up. I talked to Muffet McGraw, who I've known for a long time, and we're talking, and she tells me the story, and the thought of Caitlin Clark going to Notre Dame, what would it have looked like? So I asked her, and she said, well, we had better players around her. We would have had better players around her than Iowa did. Nothing against Iowa, but of course Notre Dame is one of the blue bloods in women's basketball. They've won 2 national championships with Muffet McGraw, and as Muffet said, she probably would have won another with Caitlin Clark, or could have won another. But she could get the top recruits. Iowa, fine program, great program. Clearly, we saw what could happen with Caitlin Clark, Kate Martin, Lisa Bluter, a great coach, wonderful person. But they just were not at the level of Notre Dame. Right. So you've got at Notre Dame, she's a cog in this incredible machine, maybe the most important cog, but she's still a cog. She's not the show. She's not the entire team. She's not the entire offense. As Muffet said, she loved the passing when she would watch Caitlin in AAU games. She loved the passing more than she liked the shooting. And as she says, as the 3-pointers, I'm not so sure we're going to be doing that, just heaving it from, the parking lot and chucking it from the next county. So that would have definitely changed. And to me, again, if the allure of Caitlin Clark, the reason the men who laughed at you and me, if we went on a radio show, they call in, oh, women's basketball is stupid, it's ridiculous. I'm talking 20, 30 years ago, right?
Right.
Where, they're just rolling around on the floor. It's just jump balls. I got that. You got that. And I, fine, laugh. I mean, I'd still, make my case. Well, those same guys or their sons, whatever. These are the guys now wearing the number 22 jerseys, not just to games, but to the grocery store and the gas station. And that's the difference. That's why Caitlin Clark has transcended sports.
It's the logo shots. And by the way, I am not paid by State Farm, but I love that commercial where she said everything would just be easier from the logo. And the guy paints the logo in all these different situations. It's a brilliant spot. Beyond that, though, she's sort of like a Steph Curry for the women's game in that way. And it amazes you. And the second she crosses that midcourt line, anything's possible. Right. Like at that second, you're like, where's it going to come from? And that is so entertaining to watch. Is that the only thing that makes her magical as you describe her? Or what else do you see that adds to her as an entertainer?
Well, and that, certainly the logo threes, that's what she's known for when they, as you said, State Farm, is they can make a commercial about that among her other great State Farm commercials. And that everyone, that's how big a deal it is. But I think the passing, there was a pass a month or so ago. I was not at the game, but I ended up seeing the highlights, and I didn't even watch part of it, whatever. But I watched the highlights several times on this one, the clip where she's blocks a shot, ball comes back to her. It's, length of the court, within a step or two, she is firing this incredible pass that just goes over the fingertips of the Dallas defender right to her teammate, Sophie Cunningham. And Sophie Cunningham lays it up and in. And the announcer, on play-by-play for, I think it might have been Ryan Rucco, says, touchdown, Indiana Fever.
Good call.
And when you on X or whatever social media you're on, you're looking at its millions of views, right? Yeah. So it's the speed. She says, I like to sprint. She goes, I'm in my apartment sprinting, because she's very, very funny. That's the other thing. And I think the book shows her sense of humor and the way they all jump on her and, and tackle her. And, and she's even funny about the technical foul. She can laugh at herself, self-deprecating humor. Again, Michele, you know this well. She is last year 22. Now she's 23. And I say in the book, she's 22 going on 40 or 50. I mean, you and we have interviewed tons and tons of people. I've covered more men's sports than women's. You have too, even though we've certainly been tried to do our best and wanted to do our best to cover women's sports and give them their due. I don't know if I've ever met anyone quite like her, who's handling everything at this young age I mean, we know athletes twice her age who are like, I'm not talking, I'm out of here. I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
And being younger, obviously, maybe she's, maybe that'll change a little, but it's not going to change much because that's how she was raised, to give that back and to care about every boy. And she says that, not just, and this is important, not just every girl, but every boy. She goes, I'm going to want to
love that
for girls and boys and girls, every word out of her mouth, boys and girls. So, but going back to your question, I think the speed with which she plays, the pace, she is just running. And that is exciting. So you've been around golf. I have as well. One of the most unlikely voices in this book, but a wonderful voice in this book, is the two-time U.S. Open men's golf champion, Curtis Strange. And Curtis and I were talking about Tiger and the way Tiger, and how Curtis had said when Tiger was coming, like, okay, we'll see. Well, they saw, and quickly they immediately, men's golf was like, yeah, bring it on. Where we haven't seen that with the WNBA. The men's golfers were like, yeah, he'll beat us, but we're a rising tide lifts all boats. Mm-hmm. And I make this point in the book why, the WNBA hasn't had that, right? They didn't see, some have for sure. Indiana Fever players, they get it. They love it. Caitlin can't do every grocery store opening. They can go and make $5 or $10 grand or whatever they get as an honorarium when Caitlin can't do it. So some of these players get it. They want to be on the receiving end of these passes. But going back to Curtis Strange, he said, and again, he's great and he's a wonderful, person, but he wouldn't necessarily be the first person I'd expect to be talking about women's basketball players, right? So he and I are talking about it, and he says, if I don't watch every game, I watch the highlights. And he said, you can't take your eyes off her. That's actually a chapter title in the book. My favorite chapter. It's about the magic of Caitlin and the fans and the interaction and what she sees when she drives by and sees the girls with her jersey on, what it means to her. I mean, she's the real deal. So Curtis in this chapter is talking about, hey, she's bringing the ball up the court. Don't go to the refrigerator. Don't leave the room. You will miss something. And that chapter title, you can't take your eyes off her. That is Curtis Strange talking about a women's basketball player. Again, something that no male golfer would have ever done even 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
That's that. And for me, this whole book and everything about this is I did not think that I would see this in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying my lifetime is, knock on wood, coming to an end.
Yeah.
No. But you know what I'm saying.
Spring chicken. No, I know what you're saying. It's a phenomenon. And I love that idea. There are only a handful of athletes like that in sports that you feel like you better not change that channel. Or as Curtis said, don't go to the fridge. It's Patrick Mahomes. At one time it was Brett Favre. If Barry Bonds came to the plate, there are certain, Aaron Judge now comes to the plate. Don't leave the room. And I think that is something you can say about her, and it really does make her magical. We got to get into the social aspect of this and the other players and the way that they treat her and this racial issue. This one is, I wish we weren't discussing this because to me, it really shouldn't matter. Like when Caitlin and Paige Beckers both came out and said, I want to recognize all the Black women who came before me. Well, I'm old enough to remember I was young enough when Cheryl Miller was a stud at USC and I was living in Southern Cal and my dad took me to see her because even my dad was like, you got to see, you can't imagine how many points she's scoring. It's crazy. So there was Cheryl Miller. There was Cheryl Swoops. There were some firsts who garnered attention along the way. This is different. I think we have acknowledged a lot of Black women who have played in this game. So this need for these two very successful white players to say, I want to help, I feel I've earned everything that I have. I've worked really hard, but I don't think they need to say that, Christine. Yes. Why do they need to say, but? They have earned everything that they have. Simple as that. It's not their fault they were born white.
Right. Yeah. And in fact, I've had on this book tour, which has been, lovely, amazing. I've had at least two, and I may have maybe forgetting one, where people come to the mic to ask questions or raise their hand, whatever, mic comes to them. And they have said, why doesn't Caitlin Clark talk more and give props to the flowers to the Black players the way Paige Beckers does? And it's so longtime WNBA fans are part of this as well. demanding something of Caitlin. And I then go back, my question to them, and it is a question because I enjoy, like you, let's have a dialogue. I'm going to learn something or try to find out something. As a journalist, I can follow up if necessary. I never want to shut anything out, ever.
Sure.
Ever. I know you're the same. And I said, so what your complaint is I understand, and your concern is that Caitlin hasn't spoken out the way Paige has. And what Paige is given credit for, correctly so, on this front, is at the ESPYs. She talked about her white privilege, and she talked about that it's a Black league, majority or Black sport, I guess is the way she worded it. I've got it in the book. I don't have it memorized, but that she went above and beyond to say, I understand, and I see you, and we need to, make sure to fight, again, paraphrasing, fight for the respect for Black women in the sport. Again, that was the gist of it. She did that on the stage at the ESPYs. Now move ahead to April of 2024. Caitlin is between college, and she'll be drafted the next day. It's actually very early. This will give it away, probably after midnight on a Saturday night. And it's within less than 48 hours. She will be the first round draft pick of the Indiana Fever in the WNBA. So she's in New York, and she surprises everyone by showing up on the set of Saturday Night Live weekend update. And she's bantering with the guys for a few minutes, funny stuff, good stuff. And then she turns towards the camera and she says, I want to thank all of the women who opened the doors that I am walking through. And she named 6 women. All 6 of them are Black. And including, she said, her favorite player, Maya Moore, the great Dawn Staley. She talks about Cheryl Swoops, even though Swoops had made up a flurry of falsehoods about her and never, finally, I think, kind of apologized privately, but never publicly apologized. It was a totally embarrassing moment for Cheryl Swoops. I don't understand it. I covered her at the Women's Final Four in 93. I like Cheryl Swoops. What are you doing, Cheryl Swoops, right? Yeah. So all of this, but Caitlin then mentions all of them. So I said, is Saturday Night Live, to the 2 people asked me these questions on the book tour, Michelle, is Saturday Night Live a big deal? Yes, they said. Does it cross over in a way out of sports that is beneficial? Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, what is it? 5-6 million viewers, whatever it is. You're reaching a vast audience, young, maybe old, whatever. You're getting people who probably should hear this, right? Caitlin, if they want to. Caitlin Clark addressed that there. I said, did that not do anything for you? I asked back to the people that asked me the question about why hasn't Caitlin spoken out? And the answer was, well, yes, but. So what I found there was interesting, because I thought they're just not sad. They just want to dislike what Caitlin's doing. Because if you go on Saturday Night Live and take those 15, 20 seconds for that moment, she didn't have to do that. That was her choice. Yeah. It's obviously on the cue cards, whatever. But I mean, that was it. Yeah. She wanted to do that. Maybe it wasn't on cue cards now that I'm saying it. Who knows? But the point is, she made that choice. And that just doesn't seem to be enough, which tells me there's something deeper seated against her. She also was asked very tough questions throughout last season, and she answered every single one, looking people in the eye, not shifting away, not, gotta go. Nope. She took it on and answered it. And when she said, at one point she was asked about all the terrible things being done in her name, she kind of said, well, I can't control that. She came back a couple hours later. I have all this in the book, of course. And she had a beautiful answer about basically cut it out. Do not use my name for racist or other things you want to do. So she's done everything asked of her and more, including Saturday Night Live, which was not asked of her. And yet there's still people angry, which is really stunning because, again, as you and I agree, this is a 74% Black league. Mm-hmm. Here comes a white woman. I have lots of thoughts, and Dr. Harry Edwards and others talk about that. We can go there if you want. But now, because all the spotlight is on her, because of all the fans, because of the record TV ratings, record viewership, and record attendance, the spotlight shining on Caitlin Clark is also hitting all of those women, majority of them Black, who never got the attention they deserved, but are getting it now. Yeah. Right? All these guys who would have never, if you said Asia Wilson, they would have, who? They now know her. They know her stats. They're impressed by her. They're watching her. They might say, hey, let's turn on the Las Vegas Aces game for a few minutes just to watch her. We're seeing evidence of that in the data. That is happening. How on earth can you be upset with Caitlin Clark for doing, by the way, nothing that you're continuing to talk about? She's doing complete opposite. You're wrong on your perceptions of Caitlin Clark vis-a-vis race. She's doing amazing things on that topic, but also she's bringing the eyeballs and people are appreciating Asia Wilson. And for anyone who doesn't believe that, look at the All-Star voting. 2 years ago, when Caitlin was still in college, like 75,000 votes for Asia Wilson for the All-Star voting. Now, granted, All-Star voting is goofy. You can vote all the time, whatever. Nonetheless, this is apples to apples. And then 2 years later, she's close to 1 million votes. Asia Wilson. Rising tide lifts all boats. Caitlin comes, and now all of these women, majority of them Black women, who deserve the attention that they never got from the male-dominated mainstream sports media, whatever reason, we would have loved it. It didn't happen. It's happening now because of one person, and yet people still want to be angry at that person.
Well, and they, people like Angel Reese, it's not just a one-person league. Of course it's not. But it does take a pivotal generational moment, whoever that player is, to do what Caitlin is doing. The similarities to Tiger in golf to me are just so close. And it's kind of funny because it's the reverse. You didn't see many Black players playing on the PGA Tour. Here comes Tiger Woods. He wins that Masters in 97, his first one, I believe it was, by some unbelievable margin. And now you can't take your eyes off Tiger Woods. And he revolutionized golf in America, absolutely changed the game. And so I see that similarity. And it is amazing that before we go, we got to talk about these cheap shots, because as you said, they're still continuing, which baffles me. And I heard a couple people, and I'm not going to mention names, but they were on CNN debating this. And they said that there was a similar tussle between two Black players in another game, totally separate. It never got the same attention. Why is that? Oh, because they were Black. I would contend it was because they're not superstars. They weren't, and it was in the action of the play. Caitlin can be standing there, and we've seen it, the ball not even in her hands, and get shoved to the ground. So there is a difference here in the way she's being treated. How is the WNBA going to address this?
Well, right now they're doing nothing, basically. And the void in leadership, which goes throughout every part of the conversation we're having, right? The common denominator on all of this is a total void in leadership. I like Kathy Engelbert. I've known her for a while. She has failed to meet the moment. The NBA, Big Brother, right? They're obviously, they own basically 60% of the league, either individual NBA owners or the league itself. So where's the NBA been in all of this? I didn't go there that much in the book just because of time and also, focusing on the WNBA. But when Kathy Engelbert last year, game one of the finals, I was there. The Players Association, as you'll recall, wanted to ban me.
Yes, this was insanity.
Beyond embarrassing, ridiculous. Yeah. It failed miserably. Of course, I had a credential. I mean, it shows the lack of national understanding of what was coming, national scrutiny, basic questions. So again, the failure. How on earth are the players not prepared? Not because they're damsels in distress, no, but because they've never had anything like this. No one helped them. No one prepared them. Dr. Harry Edwards, I alluded to, the great civil rights leader, a Black man, loves Caitlin Clark. He said, he's the man who behind the Black Power salute at the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, as you know. Mm-hmm. And Harry Edwards is in the book. Important voice. I'm so glad and honored I've done panels with him. You've probably moderated.
I wrote my honors thesis for him at Cal Berkeley.
There you go. Right. So Harry Edwards saying he loves Caitlin Clark, but the WNBA failed the players. That's Harry Edwards, not me, not you. It's Harry Edwards saying it. It's such an important moment in the book. And I'm, again, so honored that he spoke to me and we had a great conversation back in August last year for the book. And what he said was have Zooms, have seminars, not because they're needy, but because nothing like this has ever hit them before. Right. And so to the point earlier, when I mentioned the official who goes, yeah, it's as big as Maya Moore, they blew it. They blew it completely. They had no idea what was coming. How on earth can you?
It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling.
You're in Minnesota. I'm in DC. You know the crowds that were out going into the University of Minnesota games when Iowa came to town. The lines University of Maryland.
You couldn't get a ticket, right?
Yeah, our nieces were in line in January, holding space for the whole family, so that 20,000 or whatever could pack into University of Maryland in the cold, in the dark. Ohio State, all these crowds, people in line for hours like it was a Springsteen or a Taylor Swift concert, and they're all in line to watch a woman play basketball. And then you don't see that, or you just can't fathom that's coming to the WNBA. So it's all part and parcel of the same conversation here. So going back to the leadership and the fact of the hard hits and the cheap shots. So, Kathy Engelbert for that game and a first game of the finals, when she's talking all about the incredible attendance, record attendance, moving games to bigger arenas. Wonder why that happened. Doing all the attendance, the TV ratings, everything. 27 minutes of her State of the League and Q&A, and never once says the words Caitlin Clark. And I asked her about that, and then she gave me a wrong answer, which was just utterly embarrassing. And that's all in the epilogue of the book. If Kathy Engelbert, when you have the Kennedy Carter hit, they did upgrade it. The refs didn't even look at it at the time. And that was, of course, June of 2024. And that's when Angel Reese came to her feet very quickly, applauding it. Terrible look. Yep. I have Tamika Catchings in the book talking about how terrible of a look that is for Angel Reese. I tried to get Angel to talk to me 3 times for the book. At Your People, I kept saying, please, I'd love to have her voice in this book currently to talk about these issues. Nope. So anyway, that's that. But if you look at where, all of this, if Kathy Engelbert comes out the next day with a video or live or some kind of statement saying this is absolutely unacceptable, or let's go to Marina Mabry this year. They did look at that play. They didn't kick Marina Mabry out of the game. Unconscionable. It was just a freight train cheap shot. It had nothing to do with anything, which, by the way, if she's injured, Caitlin Clark's injured, that actually is who's that going to hurt? Obviously would have hurt Caitlin, but it also would have hurt Marina Mabry, because once Caitlin Clark is out, disappears, so more than half of the TV audience of the WNBA disappears. Those are facts. Those are numbers from the first time she missed 5 games. That's falling off a cliff. Tiger never had that kind of viewership drop. So if Kathy Engelbert, going back to that hit, if Kathy Engelbert had come out the next day with a statement and said, this is unacceptable, Marina Mabry, I'm giving you a 2-game suspension. Now, the Players Association would have fought that, and they could have duked it out. But the point is, you're doing something. You're making a statement. Mm-hmm. They're so passive, Michele. They're so afraid. What is it? Again, Caitlin Clark, you can say her name. You can say what's going on. I found this with some of the young reporters covering, well, Angel and Caitlin get the same attendance. I had that conversation with a young woman I've mentored. I said, well, let's look at the numbers. Oh, Angel needs Caitlin to sell out Angel's arena, right? Angel, when they moved to the big United Center in Chicago, the prices drop when Caitlin is not there, or the right, and the tickets are, the secondary market goes crazy. But Angel's still in the game, but Caitlin's not. Angel cannot sell out. Well, she had 10,000, which probably wasn't 10,000 in Washington. 24 hours later, apples to apples, Caitlin Clark had over 20,000. So it's not Angel. Angel's a great rebounder, a great player. It is Caitlin Clark. And as soon as they can come to that realization and say those words, which may not happen for this league, but they need to. And whether they're whispering about it, they need to come out in a big way. And again, Dr. Harry Edwards, the incredible ally for them. Brianna Scurry, Minnesota's own. I quote her in the book saying, don't mess this up. Brianna, the first big black superstar on the women's national soccer team, talking to the black players in the WNBA in my book. Don't mess this up. Yeah. This is the moment. Yeah. Somebody needs to do something. Obviously, there's a book out there that's selling incredibly well that says some of this stuff. Maybe they could, pay attention. I'm teasing, whatever. But somebody needs to do something, because you and I, with our careers, we are not advocates for women's sports. We are advocates for coverage of women's sports, right? And giving it its due. I mean, we may be advocates in some other ways too, but as journalists, we're focused on the coverage and the importance of making sure these stories are told. This is the moment. Caitlin Clark is the one. We've never seen anything like this in women's team sports, and I could make the case never in the history of women's sports.
Yeah,
And
I think you can make that case,
yeah,
and it's so amazing to me. You and I were posting like crazy on X after she was left off the Olympic team in Paris, which was an absolute and utter ridiculous. And the excuses that were made, and then later Don Staley sort of had to backtrack in her interview with Mike Tirico that, well, you know what, maybe she. No, they should have listened to Lisa Leslie, the Hall of Famer, who said we can't leave the United States and fly to Paris without her. And even if she was riding the bench, people still would have watched more. And yes, they got good ratings, but you and I both know those ratings would have gone up astronomically had Caitlin Clark been on the team. It was just a complete ridiculous move, and I think it was a blunder that will be looked back upon for a long time as a blunder, not just a simple oversight, if you will. But it's going to be interesting. How confident are you? Final question for you, Christine, that she is going to maintain this level of play, because she is a superstar. She's been injured, unusual for her. She had never really missed games before from high school and college. So given that, can she maintain, is she built to maintain this level of play?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. The injuries are a shock, as you've said, because, and again, for my reporting in the book, I thought, when did she miss a game? And it was sophomore year of high school, November of 2017. That was the last time she missed a game in high school, AAU, college, or first year, last year and rookie year in the pros, and now she's been injured 4 times.
Yeah.
It's obviously sad for her personally and new for her. And when she came back one of those times, of course, she had those incredible threes, within 40 seconds, probably the most entertaining 40 seconds in the history of the WNBA, 3 threes. So we know she can do that. She got just pummeled last year and always got up. So one wonders, and I don't know, I have no reporting on this, and I would never, as you would never get into the injuries or the health of an athlete. They need to tell us, a coach, a doctor, a family member, or the athlete themselves. So I don't know. But the bulking up and the workout that she did between the off season, the idea was that was going to make her healthier and stronger. So that, I assume everyone will be talking about that and looking into that. And that most important for her is figuring out how, whatever happened or didn't happen, how does she avoid these injuries to her upper left and now upper right leg going forward. Her resilience has been amazing. This is a much tougher game. Kathy Engelbert and the referees need to step in, not necessarily just to protect Caitlin Clark. Everyone's injured right now. The other day you had the Chicago Sky Indiana Fever game, and I think there were 6 Chicago Sky players, including Angel Reese, out. And there were 3 or 4 Indiana Fever players out.
Wow.
Caitlin Clark. That is not healthy.
Yeah.
So get the refs to call the games properly. If someone hits someone 3 times in a row coming down, that's 3 fouls. You can control this. That's the thing. This is all sitting there in the hands of the WNBA leadership. You can control every part of this. You can make this better. A fluid, beautiful game. Obviously, big bodies down below. They're stronger, they're better, they're bigger than they were in college. That's going to be a part of it. Caitlin Clark knows when she's going in, she's going to go in, she's going to get hit. She's not a wallflower. She's not a snowflake. She does not need you or me to worry about her in that way. But the cheap shots, what you just mentioned, the cheap shots, the ridiculous hits, the nonsense, and of course the dead ball fouls that we talked about already, these 2 huge ones last year and then this year. That you've got to throw the people out. You've got to make it a punishment that they will never do it again. Simple stuff. Parents know that about little children. Do it and figure this out. But then, I think she's going to have a good long career. I think this year is probably a great lesson for all the people training her, the medical people around her, the health professionals around her, on what did or did not happen. Let's hope. I don't know, but let's hope that they figure that out. She's not a slight person. She's 6 feet tall, but she is not big, and she's not built to play big. The speed, everything about her. I'd say try to go back to what you had at Iowa in that rookie year with the smarts and the knowledge of the now 2 years with the WNBA. And I think she'll be fine. But more important than what I think or what you think, the WNBA needs her to be fine. Because the notion that, again, Juju Watkins, get healthy, be great, be magical. Caitlin Clark is magical. Caitlin Clark is the one. She's an entertainer. She's Tiger Woods, but it's even more important than Tiger Woods because men's golf had already had, as you know, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus.
Right.
Obviously, in this case, women's WNBA never had any of this. So Caitlin Clark is way more important to women's basketball than Tiger was to men's golf, and he was important. So they have to make sure with rules, whatever it is, to make sure that Caitlin Clark and the next Caitlin Clark and Juju and everyone doesn't get pummeled and leave. That is an insane business model in addition to being an absolutely ridiculous sports model. And they've got to figure that out. And now, as we said, almost 2 years in, that this is still, the fact we're even discussing it is a big problem, sadly, for the WNBA.
Yeah, it is. You know, I end every podcast saying, be brave and do good. What I love about your reporting is you will take to task anybody, whether you like them or don't like them, respect them. If you disagree, if you see the problem, like you have with the WNBA, you take it on. I love that. And as far as doing good, this terrific book, On Her Game. You can find it everywhere. This is the first real close-up look at Caitlin Clark from a journalist's perspective and all the fascinating anecdotes within it of your time covering her when they tried to ban you. It's just ridiculous. All these things, it makes for great storytelling. So I encourage people to go get it. Christine Brennan, always an honor. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, Michele, right back at you. You are a legend. Always love seeing you. Thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Take care. On Her Game. Go get it. Hey, you can keep up with the Trump administration when you subscribe to the Trump Report. It's an email that brings you daily highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Subscribe today at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump.